unmute.
We'll call the meeting to order as Secretary of the Municipal Airport Authority. First order of business would be to have a motion to elect the chair pro tem for the meeting, since our chair and vice chair are not available in the hall.
I move Rick Ingen, our former chair.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion? If not, I'll call the roll. Ekman?
Aye.
Lind?
Aye.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Capitan? Jim?
Aye.
Ingen?
I have to abstain.
Abstained. Okay, motion carries.
All right. Thank you for joining us today. This is Tuesday, April 11th, 2023, and it is the meeting of the Municipal Airport Authority. I'd like to remind everybody that's here, if you're going to come up or going to speak, come up, speak loud as the microphones are at the table. If you're online, please make sure your phones are muted unless you're asked to speak or if we're having a vote. Thank you. First order is approve the minutes of the regular meeting, March 28th. Can I get a motion?
I move.
We have a motion, second.
I'll second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds. Any discussion? Call vote.
Ekman?
Aye.
Lind?
Aye.
Capitan?
Aye.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Ingen?
Aye. Item number 2, approve airport vouchers totaling $258,489.93. Motion, please.
I so move.
We have a motion, second, please. Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? None?
Ekman?
Aye.
Lind?
Aye.
Capitan?
Aye.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Ingen?
Aye. Moving on to item number 3, we have vouchers individually listed A through D. Valeria Aviation, $1,875. Flint Group, $15,561.25. Sun Electric, $55,647. Teal Stroh, $1,446. Could I have a motion to approve?
I just have one question.
Yes.
When is the Flint Group's, when are we gonna be doing a presentation to renew their contract? And when would we open that up to like other companies if they wanna have?
I guess we could do that anytime, solicit proposals.
I mean, when is their contract
I
done?
guess the board would make them up. There isn't a contract with them, it's just an ongoing process. The board has just approved their presentation each year,
Okay,
so it's not a formal contract.
so I'd have to make a motion to invite other companies that might be interested to bid.
We would have to do an RFP.
With an RFP,
Okay.
if the board so desires.
Okay, so that would be under like other business at the end.
It could be added, yeah.
I move to approve the vouchers.
Can we get a second, please?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? None? Call vote.
Ekman?
Aye.
Lind?
Aye.
Capitan?
Aye.
Cosgrove? Ingen?
Aye. Moving on to item number 4, receive proposal from, coming for phase 2 of their CMAR services, not to exceed $14,820.
So this will be the next phase in their process with assisting us to bring a CMAR on board. So I know the committee has met online once or twice, and then the proposals will be received here in the next few weeks. So this will help with the procurement and contract services, negotiating with whatever firm the board desires to hire.
Can I get a motion?
I make a motion.
We have a motion, a second, please.
Second.
Second from Eric. Any discussion? Any discussion? None?
Ekman?
Aye.
Lind?
Aye.
Capitan?
Aye.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Ingen?
Aye. Moving on to item number 5, authorized purchase of P5500C cupping grant plow under the Minnesota state contract.
So Andrew is here, and Andrew, why don't you come forth if you have any questions here. So in your packet, you saw the list of items through the state bids that are available to us through Sourcewell and the Minnesota state contract. And this cupping plow here would be for a front end loader that we ordered last year. We haven't taken delivery of yet. It's in town, it's been at RDO for a number of weeks now, and hopefully it'll be delivered here fairly soon. So this will be the next part of that purchase, is to acquire this cupping plow that the staff has thoroughly reviewed under Minnesota State Contract 223955, the amount of $136,680.85. So if you have any questions, Andrew, who's our airside operations supervisor, can answer those for you.
Has it just been at RDO getting tuned up, or?
No, the loader showed up, they're waiting for the hitch and the bucket and stuff to show up. So,
Okay.
So it's just a process.
just a process, yeah.
Any other questions from the board?
What does a cupping ramp plow do?
Basically what it says, so it can be, it's 33 feet wide if it's straight out. So it'll clear a lot of snow in a quick bit of time, or you can, the sides fold in at about a 45-degree angle. So it acts like a box plow at the same time. So it's kind of a multi-use plow.
Perfect.
A lot of airports use them. We've done some research and visited other airports, so
Sounds like you could have used it this week.
we could have used it all winter.
Okay.
Could I get a motion? Oh, go ahead, sorry, Herman. Yes.
Maybe just quickly have John explain the difference. The front end loader was purchased on a request for proposal, or request with bid. This is off a schedule. Just a quick recap why that's different.
No, the front end loader was also bought off of the public consortiums as well. I forget if it was on Sourcewell or HGAC, you remember, Darren?
Remember?
Yeah, because the vendors at the time with the loader and other times that we've done that have said that we would receive a better price just through the state contracts, and that proved to be true.
So these are instances where we don't do bids. We go to the
Well,
negotiated price.
Right, the public consortium has received the bids on our behalf for all public entities, that's correct.
So it conforms with the bid.
Correct.
Yeah.
And just so people understand the difference.
Yeah, we can buy
That's all I have.
hundreds and thousands of items through the public bids, just like we do for all of our janitorial products under the North Dakota State bid. It's thousands of dollars each year going to those consortiums.
And I imagine some time as well too in the process.
Absolutely.
Yes. Any other questions? Motion, please.
So move.
We have a motion and a second for the purchase.
I'll second it.
All right. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? None, roll call.
Ekman,
Aye.
Lind,
Aye.
Capitan,
Aye.
Cosgrove,
Aye.
Enion.
Aye. Moving on to item 6, authorized purchase of 2 MD5 multitask snow removal units.
Okay, these are a little bit bigger units, you probably saw that in your packet, you see them on the state highways, but the number of airports now have got these, I believe Grand Forks, Minneapolis. So it's the plow and the broom all in one long unit. And these 2 units, if approved today, will replace, how many, 3 units? 3. So we'll be, 3 of our older units will be putting on public auction once we take delivery of these, and it's a little over a year to get them. So this will do the job of those 3 units, those 2. So this is also through the MB Company's Minnesota State contract, and we request your approval of that today. Andrew's got, if you have any questions.
Any questions from the board for Andrew?
So this is a completely different piece of equipment than the cupping
Yes.
ramp
Yep, this is
plow.
a runway ramp and plow room combo unit, so takes the place of 2 operators, 1 operator can do it.
The cupping plow is just a plow that sits out and then you drive the loader up to attach to it and then it's not a self.
This is a self-contained, yeah.
Okay,
And what is the approximate turnaround time to get these?
120 days, I believe.
450.
450 days from the
450.
date of order.
So basically for the benefit of the board, we're doing this now so we have it by 2 falls from now, correct?
Be the winter of 2024.
Any questions from the board? None, can I get a motion?
I make a motion.
We have a motion, can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second, any other discussion? Any other discussion? Roll call.
Heckman.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Kingan.
Aye. Moving on to item 7, receive communication from Kevin and Cheryl Clapp requesting 5-year extension for their gifts, the gift shop concession agreement.
Per your discussion at the last meeting, items 7 and 8 both those tenants were requested to provide their request for a 5-year extension as a result of the planning that we're underway right now with the terminal expansion. And this is the request from Kevin and Cheryl Platt for news and gift locations that will be included in the terminal expansion project.
For the benefit of the board, we could merge 7 and 8 together if you wish and make a motion accordingly as they're both extensions. Keep in mind, this also allows for these concessionaires to work with Mead and Hunt, the architects, engineers, in inputting what they need for their concession space ahead of construction for the terminal expansion. So can I get a motion?
Are they here today? The Claps are.
Terry Northern is here from
Yes, I am.
Skyline,
I'm not sure if Dustin is online.
and Kevin and Cheryl Clapp are online. Dustin is online as well, so if you have any questions of either party, they're both online and Terry's in person for Skydeck.
Okay. I had a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So I think this is really a important time in the future of our airport that we make sure that you're working with Mead and Hunt so that we have a long-term, really functional, we're gonna be moving a lot of the services inside security. We wanna make everything functional for our passengers, user-friendly, a lot more services inside, but we want everything to be upgraded in the look. And so I think it's important that we know going forward that you'll be working with Mead and Hunt to really provide an upgraded experience for our passengers that are arriving and departing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the key. We want this to be a good partnership for everyone. We will work with them. What we will do as far as our fixtures and the look that we'll have on the security side, updating it all with new equipment, fixtures. Probably be working with a fixture company. Some of the companies we work with now offer store layouts, so we'll kind of work with them what they have for fixtures, getting their input on how they would lay the store out, et cetera. We'll be looking for some from those kind of types of people on how we go forward with the local security side.
We're certainly getting closer to narrowing down the sizes of each concession space that will be available for food and beverage and news and gift. I think we're getting real close to that, so as you are both engaged by Mead and Hunt and their sub-consultants that deal with concessions, you'll be able to know what square footages that we're working with. So that's getting close.
Yes, Sean, you've kind of reviewed some of that on the most recent layouts, and we do have a couple of concerns that we want to address, before we would renew the lease, as far as it doesn't really look like there's any space on the public side for concessions, except for a small food area. We have a little bit of a concern for that, and just because we feel like we do, about it's 40% of our business on the public side. But the secured side, we're also looking at that space as well on the most recent drawings that have been developed. We've met with Mead Hunt a couple of times. I think the last time being in January.
Okay, and make sure that Brandon Halverson at Mead and Hunt has those concerns and suggestions. The concession space pre-security will be significantly smaller than what is available today. That is true. Whether or not they can squeeze out any more space, we'll see. I believe that in our last conversation Darren and I had with them, they are looking at a shared concession space between a food and beverage and a gift shop pre-security, but it will be fairly small.
Yeah, we understand that.
I think if you look at,
We were under the impression that there wouldn't be any space for us.
Darren, I think there is.
I'm sorry.
There is space for a small gift shop
Oh, yeah.
pre-security. Just how many square feet yet, Kevin and Cheryl, we're not quite sure. But
Yeah,
there is a
I get
space, yep.
I believe post 9/11, people, most of the airports that I visit, the bulk of the services are inside security. People kind of want to get through security and then sit down and order their beverage and order their food, and there's less concessions happening prior to security. So I think that you'll see those sales reflected as you have more
Yeah.
space inside security, and you'll probably sell more just because there's less offerings inside security currently. I think your sales will grow exponentially as people are inside security and also kind of trapped inside security waiting for weather delays and mechanicals and that type of thing.
The other thing to mention is Kevin and Cheryl maintain all of the vending machines that are post-security right now, so in the departure lounge. They added credit card devices there, and Kevin, I think you said your usage went up, it was overwhelming how much the usage.
Between 50 and 60%.
And pre-security, Skydyne has the beverages on the second floor and the first floor, and then Kevin and Cheryl have a canning machine on the first floor, so I don't know how that will change going forward.
I have seen like automated coffee type of kiosks that wouldn't require to be manned, but then you would have the ability to get a fresh cup of coffee prior to going through security.
So that's a question for Terry and Dustin, I guess. I don't know if you've seen that in your,
Okay.
Dustin?
And we understand the airport goals and their mission on to move that postal services to the post-security side. So we're obviously engaged and looking forward to working with Mead and Hunt and the architect firms there and their subcontractors and getting all that hammered out and bringing a really nice proposal to you. And I travel to report different concepts and different ways of doing things, and certainly there's some options there. If you have any coffee kiosk that they have.
I remember you said you were working with a local coffee vendor. Were you able to secure anything?
We're still working with we have 2 of them that I'm working with, and I'm trying to get commitment out of them. They're
Okay.
I think we lost him. We lost Dustin. Let's see. Oh, there he is. You froze up, Dustin. But Terry, you've got a couple that you're working with here locally.
Yes, we've got a couple in discussions right now that we're trying to work with, so.
lost you there for a second.
All right, go ahead.
For a second.
Go ahead. Any other questions for the tenants?
One comment. I mean, one of the reasons that we want to extend the 5-year lease now is so that you can work together and we could come up with something as attractive as one of the pictures you showed us from Montana of a coffee
Absolutely.
place, like that was really nice, so it won't be a last second add-on, but you'll be working with Mead and Hunt as we create this new space.
Dustin does a great job of that, he works with those guys all the time and are working for plans and
Absolutely.
so.
Okay. So that when we do get to open the doors, we won't have white spaces, we'll have it all together,
Absolutely.
okay.
Can I get a motion on number 7 for the concession agreement? Please.
I make a motion.
We have a motion on number 7, can I get a second?
I'll make second to approve.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call.
Heckman,
Aye.
Lind,
Aye.
Capitan. Capitan,
It's muted.
he's got a thumbs up there. Cosgrove. Aye. Hingham.
Aye. Moving on to number 8, same question. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion.
We have a motion, can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Motion of multiple seconds. Any discussion? Any discussion, none, roll call.
Heckman,
Aye.
Lind,
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Hingham.
Aye. Moving on to number 9, present 2022 audit.
Alright, so Ryan Oxall's here from Brady Marks and I guess the floor is yours. And then whatever questions the board has.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to come in person. I could have probably done this Zoom as well, but just feel like there's something to be said about seeing some faces and certainly for those on the screen, if you can come to another meeting at some point to meet everybody.
Can everybody hear him okay? Jim? Eric? Can you hear him?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty good.
Okay.
Okay,
There's the speaker, just move it towards you a little while.
oh, this one. There we go. So what I plan to do this morning is there's 3 different reports that I'll go through. I do have a tendency to run through things relatively quick, so feel free to slow me down, ask questions as you have them. But what I'll start with is the management report. We'll get into the audit report, and then lastly, we'll go through the PFC report. So the management report is really a 2-part report. One part is the communication with those charged with governance at the end of the audit, which would be similar to what we're doing today. And then the second part is our management comment section, which is really, as we go through the audit, things that we come across that aren't material in nature, but things we want to bring up as best practices, and we'll kind of talk through those as well. So the first part here is a high-level overview of the audit process and how it went. And so I guess I'll start off by saying I appreciate everybody's help and timely responses. It's a pretty big lift on a first-year audit, especially when there's multiple different changes with, separation from the city, the new lease standard, which I'll talk about in a second, and the PERS changes. So there's a lot of things to kind of get our arms wrapped around. So the fact that we were able to get things turned around as timely as we have, I think is a testament to the help that we got from not only your staff, but then I think it's Balance CPAs. They did a great job too of handing everything over to us, and timely responses for all of our questions. So I appreciate that. One new standard that's adopted for 2022 is known as GASB 87 for leases. And so you're going to see this when we get into the audit report. There used to be a difference between a capital lease and an operating lease and how you reported those. So capital leases would find its way to your balance sheet, similar to buying a piece of equipment and you owe debt. Operating leases would be like leasing either being the lessor or the lessee land, usage of space, etc. And so those leases used to be just footnoted within the footnote section of the audit report. So the new standard basically said we're going to lump everything into one category, just call it leases, and everything's going to be finding its way to your statement of net position. So you'll see it was a fun exercise because there's lots of leases at airports, and sifting through what does qualify and what doesn't qualify is a little bit challenging because some of the airline leases, for example, were taken out of the standard. So there was a lot of work to be done in that section. And we'll show you what that did to the audit report. Really, the bottom line, not a whole lot, but it is a couple of numbers that you're gonna see that's new on the financial statements. The next section is going through the estimates within the financial statements, and there is basically one significant estimate. And what we mean by that is an estimate that's subject to change from one year to the next based off of changes in assumptions, et cetera. And your involvement in the ND PERS plan has that significant change possibility. The actuaries every year go through the unfunded part of the plan at the state level, and basically you're required to put your piece of the pie on your financial statements, which is kind of an accounting exercise more than anything else, but it can swing up and down quite a bit based off of discount rate changes, et cetera, by the actuaries. And so wanted to point that out. No difficulties performing the audit, no disagreements with management. At the end of the audit, we get a representation letter just indicating that everything that's been given to us is truthful and accurate. So that's pretty much that report in a nutshell. The second part of this report, in the last page of the management report, is the two comments that we ran across that we felt like were immaterial instances of either non-compliance or internal control suggestions. And like I said, these are big best practices. And so the two comments that we have, one is on payroll review procedures. There was one person that had a change in their pay rate that didn't get caught on the first or second pay run. I'm not sure exactly when it got caught, but it did eventually get caught and updated within the system. So, when we look at internal controls, ideally they prevent errors, but at least if you detect and correct them in a timely basis, that's the other side that still qualifies for the control process itself to be set up properly. So once again, I don't think there's anything wrong with the internal control process. It just got missed on this one instance. The second one is just how things were being reported for the airport improvement program. The 425 reports are done on a quarterly basis, and we noticed most of the time we see these on a cumulative basis, which is kind of how the standard is written. These are being reported on a, I think it was just a cash basis basically. And so in total they were correct. They were being received and approved at the federal level, so there was no issues there. We contacted them. They said, yeah, probably should be cumulative going forward, but they didn't see it as a big issue. So that's why those are the two comments that we came across here. And this is very common, when we get new auditors, different way of looking at things, et cetera. And so going forward now, we as auditors are required to switch up procedures so that we come across different things. So don't be surprised if other things come to our attention going forward, because obviously when we look at the audit, we're looking for reasonable assurance. So we don't look at every receipt, every disbursement, every grant, et cetera. So
one thing I'll mention is the Bismarck office did change from quarterly now to annual. So there will be one 425 report submitted each year, or when the grant is finalized, whatever time of the year that is. So.
Okay. Any questions on the management report?
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, at some point, I apologize, apparently I don't have everything here with, but there was a schedule of federal expenditures that we don't do. Could you address what it would take to do that and why we don't do it?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
What was the acronym for it? State for, there's a schedule of federal expenditures. It was in the first draft of the materials. I didn't see it in the plan, but in the first draft we talked about it.
I'm guessing he's referring to the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. I'm not positive as far as if it's related to like the financial statement review finding that we have maybe. And maybe what I can do is I'll get into the audit report, and if there's something that kind of rings the bell as far as what the question relates to, I can certainly help narrow that down and help answer that question. Does that sound okay?
I think the board, we're choosing not to do that. We should just have a quick discussion on what type of risk that shifts to us. Not that we would decide to do one, but just so we understand what that is.
Sure, I can get into that, and I think it probably relates to, the auditor preparation, the financial statements, et cetera, is probably what kind of this is getting our arms wrapped around. But when we get into the audit report, like I said, if there's questions or kind of, I'm touching on what your question is, just let me know and I'll be happy to try to address that.
Okay, again, the other one you can probably address too is that, we're having you prepare the financial statements, which leaves us with some additional risk also, that's the other.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that may not be due, Sean, that may be something we'll have to, again, as a board, look at, to decide what we wanna do, if we wanna avoid that, and what it would cost. We just have to kind of look at that, and again, I think the board just needs to be aware and understand that we're making a decision there that has some risk attached to it.
I think that's very common with your clients, is that correct, Brian?
True statement. We do have the software, and obviously it kind of combines everything together for us to be able to prepare the financial statements. And I'll probably touch base on this a little bit when we get to that section of the audit report, but the rule of thumb is we can help prepare the financial statements. And if we determine that the staff and maybe your fee accountants have the ability to do them, but they're just choosing for us to do it because of timing, you wouldn't have to have this finding. The issue in this year especially is due to the lease standard. And because of the complexities of the lease standard and getting that all implemented properly, we just felt like there's probably going to need some help at some point. And so that's kind of what ends up happening is the finding for the financial statement prep and adjusting journal entries. But it is very common, I'd say about 90-95% of the audits that we do the audit report and then have that related finding. So to help mitigate those risks, we send drafts to not only the fee accountant, but also to your staff to ensure that they review and approve them before we issue them. So that kind of helps reduce the risk that's there. Because we get into just the fact of when we put the audit financial statements together, then we audit it. Are we auditing our own work is kind of, the basis of what we're kind of getting around. So, but we do ensure that somebody reviews those drafts.
So John, I guess one question, go ahead, John.
I don't have a problem with what we're doing, it's just, I think the board needs to understand from a government standpoint that we are choosing not to do this, and just so the board's always informed. It's not that we would change or do it differently, but when you have a situation like this, where we have a statement, I just think the board members all individually need to understand what we've done. And so it's more information and knowledge that we're waiving that.
So one question would be, if we did opt to have a separate audited financial report done exclusive of the auditor, would that in any way extend the time and then create an issue with us being able to promptly submit that report to the city of Fargo under our agreement with them?
Rick, I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. I guess that then becomes the second question. Is that going to stretch the time out in any capacity?
No, and this isn't suggesting that we wouldn't continue to do that. It's just, I think it's important looking at financial standards, or we're waiving things, but just as a board, we understand what we're doing. And we may continue to do that. If we decided not to, then it would be, yes, what does it cost, what's the timing, all that. But so we understand we're waiving that.
I think that would be something as well, that if we would choose, whether we do or not, that we relay that to the city, because again, there could be a time issue, and that timing issue then pushes up against that agreement we have with getting our information to the city in a timely manner. Now, if they're in agreement, I think it's a great conversation. I hate to be put in a corner with it.
Yeah, and I'll touch base on that a little bit here too. I think that might kind of go full circle as far as tying this together. So when we get into the audit report, and pages 2 through 5 is the independent auditor's report. So we've issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is considered a good or clean opinion, that they're fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And kind of to get to your point is the responsibility of the financial statements is management's. So it is your responsibility for all of the numbers, for all of the footnotes. So you are taking responsibility for that, even though we as auditors help prepare them together. And I think that's kind of what we're saying here, is that there is a risk there that we're putting them together on your behalf. So, but it is, our opinion is on your financial statements. One thing that we do have in here is the emphasis of matter related to the new lease standard, just indicating that that new principle was adopted. Other than that, really not anything new or changed within audit opinions as far as what you've seen in prior years, with the exception of obviously this is separate for the airport. The next section, which is pages 6 through 11, this is management's discussion and analysis section of the audit report. And so you'll notice that this is comparative on a condensed level. So if you're looking for a quick snapshot of what happened during the year, I think this is the section that's probably the easiest read to go through. It is considered unaudited, but we do tie everything back to the audited financial statements as part of our audit preparation. So the first audited financial statement is on pages 12 and 13. This is the statement of net position. And the way that this statement works is you take your assets and deferred outflows of resources, subtract out your liabilities and deferred inflow of resources, and then at the bottom of page 13 is going to be your net position. And so you can see the net position, $167,777,944. That is your equity or retained earnings within the authority. The number right above that, $46,891,010. That is the unrestricted portion, or the dollars that are not tied into your capital asset structure. It's not restricted for any purpose. So that would be the portion that is available for spending. A couple things that I wanted to point out as far as the lease standard is concerned, just to kind of give you an idea of what that did to the financial statements, is about a few lines from the bottom. You can see that deferred inflow of resources related to leases of $7,282,018. That is basically the leases that you have as a lessor. So we basically looked out to the period of the leases that you had outstanding, and that'll be recorded as basically revenue as you earn those. That is then offset on page 12, about 6 lines from the bottom. You can see that lease receivable net of current portion, $6,298,721, and the current portion of that is $1,039,381. So all in all, it almost offsets each other, the lease receivable and that deferred inflow resources. So on the bottom line, it probably doesn't have a big impact, but a couple bigger numbers that you wouldn't have seen in years prior. The other thing I guess I'll point out is on page 13, about 6-7 lines from the top, there's that net pension liability, ND PERS Maine and ND PERS Law Enforcement. That's the estimate that I was referring to before, where the ND PERS plan at the state level is considered unfunded. And so the requirement for the standard is for you to put your piece of the unfunded portion on your financial statements. It's not a dollar amount that you'd ever have to pay off. It's just really an accounting exercise to indicate that that's your portion of the unfunded liability. So we can get into more details on that, but that's what that means. And you would have had this in years past as well, combined with the city. You just broke off, and it's just a separate piece now for the airport authority. The next 2 pages, pages 14 and 15, are going to be the changes in revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. So the bottom of page 15, 3 lines to the bottom, the overall change was a positive $11,028,630. One of the things to keep in mind is as you receive grant dollars, that they oftentimes find their way, especially capital grant dollars, they find their way as revenues on this statement. And when you spend the money, they end up getting capitalized on the balance sheet. So it's not always apples to apples. So this number does get inflated a little bit. And the number I like to look at is on page 14 at the bottom, that operating income number, $3,562,865. Probably a better indicator of the health or the financial change from the prior year. That also includes depreciation, which would be a non-cash item of $5.2 million. So that number would be a little bit higher without that. So, no red flags as far as the numbers are concerned as far as the audit. Pages 16 and 17, then this is the cash flow statement. So if you look on page 16, about 6 lines from the bottom, you can see the net decrease in cash and cash equivalents was $9,047,802. If you look a few lines above that, most of that change in cash was just because you purchased investments. So you purchased investments of a little bit over $17.7 million. That's going to be the big change in the cash flows. Why the cash was down, but your investments would have been up. So that wanted to point that out. The next several pages, pages 18 through 42, are the footnotes to the financial statements. Don't usually go into too much detail at this level, but we can certainly circle back if there's questions. This will have your accounting policies, lots of information on the leases, on the net pension liability, et cetera. So if you have questions on that, that would be where you'd find those sections. Pages 47 and 48, this is the government auditing standards letter. And this is a high-level overview of your internal control structure at the Airport Authority. And this is where we're kind of getting back to that topic of the two findings that we have. And we have one finding which we've talked about, which is the financial statement prep and adjusting journal entries. And the other thing I guess I'd point out on that is if you decided to go another route with your audited, if for somebody else to write your financial statements, if when we reviewed those, if we found some things that weren't quite done right, or we had changes to the numbers and or the footnotes, you'd still likely have the same finding because we would argue that they weren't fairly or materially stated correctly. So, just kind of point that out, that it's not quite as easy as just thinking that the finding would be gone. You still have to have it accurately stated. But once again, there is still a risk with the auditors preparing the financial statement, which is why we have management always review and approve those before we issue them. And the second one that we have is also due to the size of the entity is separation of duties. You just have a small accounting staff, so we kind of point that out as a risk, which is why it's a good idea to have a secondary review and approve of bills, et cetera, which we do think you are doing to help loosen or lessen those risks. You also have the involvement of the fee account, which certainly helps separate those duties as well. So wanted to point those things out. Yes.
Question on the financial reporting.
Yes.
Is the complexity of dealing with government grants, state grants, federal, is that part of why that complexity exists?
Yes. Yep. It's
inherent to the entity no matter what.
Correct. Yeah, you're always going to have the special risks with the different types of grants that you can get, along with, like I said, those leases are very confusing. Next year, you're going to have software, which is, they're called SPIDAs is what the name of it is, but it's going to require some more bells and whistles into the audit report. Well, we've discussed that with a little bit with management, but it's really related to software agreements that you might have that extend over a period of just 1 year. Very similar to how leases work. Pages 49 through 51, this is the uniform guidance report, also known as like the single audit. And we have an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion on the airport improvement program, which is the program that we tested this year. So all the federal funding that you received were part of the airport improvement program. So it's the only CFDA number or assistance listing number that you're going to see on page 52. Overall, $7,019,050 was received and spent for federal grant dollars for the year. So that once that number is over $750,000, you're required to have a special single audit, which is really an audit of a program within your financial statement audit, and that's where the unmodified or clean opinion came into play. No findings or any concerns that we had on the airport improvement program testing that we did. So that is pretty much the audit report in a nutshell. Certainly open it up for any questions or comments that anybody might have.
I guess I have one with respect to risk or at risk.
Yep.
And the step away from the city of Fargo. Are there any findings with respect to that are there that obviously go away?
So there is one thing that I guess technically I talked a little bit with Sean on. So if you look on page 53? So on page 53, this is the schedule of findings and question costs, and it's really a summary. The thing that you see at the bottom is the only thing that really probably changed, and that's whether or not you qualify as a low-risk auditee. Qualifying as a low-risk auditee really just makes a difference on how auditors review and test going forward. And so the requirement for you to be a low-risk auditee is you have to have 2 audits back-to-back that are considered clean audits, filed timely under your EIN number. So the fact is that you had an EIN number under the city, and so now you technically don't have the prior 2 audit reports that were filed under your ID. So that is really the only change. You've probably taken the safe route as far as just reporting it this way too. It doesn't change anything because you don't have more than 1 grant anyway. And so the testing that we did was the same whether or not you're a low-risk auditee or a high-risk auditee because you only had 1 grant.
Does this, and maybe it's not a fair question to ask of you, or maybe Kaz knows the answer, does that statement have any effect on future bonding or rating for lending?
It really shouldn't. The findings is typically what the bonding agencies would look at. So I don't see any issue with that.
So was it because of the review of another grant not related to the airport when we were part of the city? Is that why it went to high risk?
It's really just because the airport authority didn't have its own submission to the clearinghouse, and so when we put in the EIN number to submit for this year, you don't have any prior audits out there. So we couldn't really answer, did you have the last 2, even though you're kind of combined with the city, that is kind of a gray area. So I don't, this shouldn't affect anything going forward for bonding.
25 audit for 24 would be clean, or assumed clean?
Yeah, so the 22, if the 22 is correct and the 23 is correct, 24 would be the first audit.
Next year's audit, it just kind of falls out of the hole. You know, that's why the city does have concern, is that, you know, we do have an impact on their audit and their financials, but there's no way around it at this point. That's where we can have to remind ourselves that if they're asking us to do different things, it's because we get rolled up into their audit. It's just the way this whole thing's set up.
So, but I guess my question is, so then in 24 for 23, the 23 audit will still have the mark,
Yep,
okay? Just because the 2-year period, but then the next year's audit, barring any changes, should not be at risk.
yeah, assuming that everything comes as clean as it did this year and you get a clean opinion going forward, the 23 audit would be the last audit that you'd be a low risk or a high risk auditee. 24 audit, then you'd be back to low risk.
John, you had a question, or?
No, just that comment, because have to roll out in 2 years.
Yeah. Well, and Kaz, maybe can you answer to this, does this help the city of Fargo once, even though we're on their financials, or it feeds to it in some form or fashion? That when we go to that low risk status, that in essence, it could help,
Yeah.
correct?
I'm not certain, but maybe you could answer this, is that if we're high risk, that forces the city into a high risk. But I don't think we're material enough to cause that, but maybe we are.
No, so what'll happen is, I believe you're gonna get rolled up as a discreetly presented component unit. When they complete their federal report, there is a section that they can say that you've already had your single audit and it's rolled up, so they don't have to double up on the single audit reporting at that level. So really, there's nothing that I think needs to go from your single audit up to the city when they do their reporting.
Any other questions from the board?
Brian, I appreciate you coming in and talking to us in person,
Yeah, no problem.
taking the time to come down here.
It's much easier to get the questions and, follow through, cause there's just some limitations on the feedback that I can get from doing a remote presentation. So this is my preference. It wasn't able to do this a couple years ago, but I'd much rather do this.
I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to come down.
Yeah,
Thank
the one last thing on separation of duties, I'd like to ask this question. How many people would we have to have involved to not have that language?
Tricky question. I'd say, I'd say, you know, probably in that, 4 range. You know, the issue becomes is with only 2 people in the office right now, if somebody's gone, automatically one person could do everything without anybody else noticing. Now, I'm not saying that that's happens or even a possibility based off of how you have things set up, but we as auditors just always point out that risk exists because we are not here on a daily basis to know what's going on, right? So with multiple people, it allows a little bit more to say, okay, this person receives the deposit, this person takes it to the bank, this person records it and reconciles it. You know, that's kind of the pickiness that we get to as auditors, but I don't think there's a defined number, so to speak. It really it's based off of number of transactions and that kind of thing. So 4 I threw out there as probably a good guide.
No.
Good
Okay,
question.
Balance tax accountant takes a lot of that risk out.
Certainly on the reconciling and recording it, because, you know, you gotta look at incentives. They don't have any incentive to not do things correctly. So that does certainly help.
I think one thing also, this is not a cash intensive business, so that mitigates, or there's mitigation there on the ratio of cash to electronic payments or otherwise.
True statement. Yeah. The risks seem to just kind of change with time. The cash receipt thing has kind of gone away to some degree. It's now more about, you know, transfers within bank accounts, EFT payments. A lot of people are receiving and paying via electronic means, cyber security, you know, cyber stuff. Those kind of things are new and different ways to look at the risks of separation of duties. But
Any other questions? Can we, make a motion to accept?
Yeah, and I think you want to talk about the PFC audit.
yeah, I also have the PFC audit.
For what they,
Yep, and very briefly, the PFC audit, there's a guide that gets sent out that we go through various items, and we issue basically an opinion on the PFC program, which is very similar to a single audit. So once again, we have an unmodified opinion on the PFC. We have a separate report that helps, you know, to just kind of keep it separate and submit it as you need. But this is an unmodified report, and it basically goes through and reconciles on a cash basis the PFC charges that you received and the expenses which get approved over a period of time on various pieces of equipment. We make sure that all that's been done right. And then the last page of this report is the summary of audit results, which just indicates that there's no findings related to the PFC program, unmodified opinion.
And those findings would be in the summary audit as well, if there were.
True statement.
All right. Can I get a motion to accept the submission?
I make a motion.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? None? Roll call.
Heckman,
Aye.
Lind,
Aye.
Capitan,
Aye.
Cosgrove,
Aye.
Engman.
Aye. Moving on to number 10, Paula, discussion on employee recognition.
Thank you for adding this to the agenda. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel, so per se. I didn't realize that Tammy Lynn had implemented or crafted a employee recognition program already. One of the things that I wanted to acknowledge was when I was at the roundtable conference at the airport meeting in Bismarck a few weeks ago, one of the very the big problems that airports around North Dakota, and I'm sure all employees are experiencing this, a lack of employees. And so once we have an employee, what can we do to keep that employee? And history shows and studies show that employee recognition matters. And so this is a tricky matter because although it's the Hector Airport, we have so many employee groups under our umbrella that we aren't directly the managers of. You know, they're employees of, for instance, American Airlines or Delta Airlines, so, or the TSA or et cetera, So, but when somebody takes a long time to get their baggage, or it reflects badly on us as an airport, or when we have new employees, we've got a lot of secure areas. There's a lot of risk to not retaining our tried and true, employees. So what can we do to change that? And I think employee recognition is something that is an easy thing that we can do to hopefully retain employees. People that are recognized are often stay longer, and there's a lot of studies that prove that. So in Tammy's program, thank you for emailing me that, that was just halted during 2020, for obvious reasons. She had, I think, said, let's recognize one person every other, or twice a month, and then that person would come to the meeting for recognition. It doesn't necessarily have to cost the employee or the airport itself to have these employee recognition programs, but here I have some other ideas, and I hope that everybody will chime in with ideas as well. We could recognize people on employees with the quarterly newsletter or on social media. We could maybe give the person a parking spot, a VIP parking spot for 2 weeks. Hector Airport Swag. I was thinking it would be fun to have a reception, maybe twice a year, where the people that are recognized, we have a little, reception that could bring a +1, maybe. A gift shop certificate, goes right along with that Hector Airport Swag. We could also host a monthly team, like a monthly breakfast where we just bring in bagels or something, put it in the crew lounge. Just different ways that we can show that our employees that we appreciate them. Another idea I had was, say the people that are recognized, maybe once a year you throw their name in a hat and have a bigger prize, like a flying lesson that maybe the Jet Center could help with. So I was just doing all this research and I'm just throwing out different ideas. Maybe somebody likes one of them. But we know that the employee atmosphere in our state and in our region is challenging. And so how do we address that as an airport? I know at the roundtable discussion, Williston said that one of the ways they're dealing with the airport employee struggle is they're actually hiring baggage people on their own. They're hiring some of the ground support people on their own. I don't think we want to do that. Bismarck said they're actually implementing a training program of their own just because there's so many secure areas and important training things that they don't want missed by oftentimes, a frequent employee changing even of the management. Grand Forks said they are not having as many problems because they're able to pull on the airline employees or students at UND. So they've got kind of an advantage that they've got people that are looking to beef up their resume and are interested in airports. We don't have that quite as much. So if anybody likes anything that I'm saying or has any input on how we can show some recognition, even social media. And one of the things I was thinking of right away, like Tammy's forums had said, what did people do that was above and beyond? And like when you helped with the organ, finding the organ, Expedia's so, I mean, saving lives, some of the different things that airport employees do that make a difference. And why not say thank you and be recognized in more than just an email, but throw it on our social media, and it's a big deal. And so, what can we do as an employee to re-implement that program?
Very good. Paula, I do think with the changes coming to the airport and the expansion, we're all gonna be tested. Whoever is here is gonna be tested, and it will be good because many times those people that are on the ground see things, hear things, or can say things that make us look better. So that'll be good.
So whether it's Sean, I know you said maybe the manager of each different employee group could throw in a suggestion of, or a recommendation of who to recognize. We could also open that up to other employees. Just say, who would I like to recognize, who went above and beyond the call of duty to make either a coworker's experience better or a passenger's experience better.
Their job.
I know, everybody likes to be recognized though, and say thank you, and all the research says, if you do say thank you, if you do recognize, people are happier in their jobs. And if people are happy in their jobs, they stay longer, and that's what we wanna do, is retain our good employees.
Any comments from the board members on the line or questions of Paula?
Well, I really like your idea of the parking spot. I think that is a really good idea. We had an employee of the month at the Air Guard, and it was named for one guy, Glenn O'Connell, and we had the Glenn of the Month award because he was such an outstanding person, and then ended up the first 6 times that the award was given, it was given to Glenn. So that was just kind of funny, but anyway, yeah, parking spot or airport swag, I think all that's a really good idea.
Okay,
Any other comments from the board members online?
No, I just would support that. What we can, if we get something kind of on a regular basis and keep it going, I think that's important, so. I always like to see the employees in a position where, when they do something special, that it does get recognized. And how can I help you award? If everybody takes that attitude, it really does help, so.
Sean, do we need to move on anything, or it's in place and then we just implement as we go, correct?
so Tammy's program, I think, recognized one person every 2 weeks and then had that person come to the board in that meeting, and that might be maybe not as convenient for the employee. So I think one of the things we could do is lump it all into a reception every 6 months, or whether it be come to the board meeting, but they don't need to come every 2 weeks. Maybe they come, they're recognized on social media, they're recognized in quarterly newsletter.
Assuming someone is nominated.
Right.
I'm not sure coming to a board meeting is a reward.
True, that's what I was thinking, it might be more cumbersome.
We were all thinking that, but no one wanted to say it, cost.
It might be more cumbersome, so maybe we take what Tammy started and just tweak it up a little bit for implementation and get the ball rolling, because I just think that that's one way that we can help our vendors keep good employees.
Good, thank you. Alright, moving on to number 11.
Terry had to drop off at 9, but on the exit plaza, the siding was close to being done. The generator was installed. We believe it's been running and tested. We'll have to confirm that. And then the remaining card access is complete, and the parapet metal needs to be installed yet. So you'll probably see today when you leave that they're still working on around the top edge of the structure, but it's hopefully operational from there. I don't know, Jeff, if you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess what I'll add is Thursday this week at 4 o'clock, we're gonna open bids for the parking lot project. And then On the North GA apron, we're tentatively, haven't nailed this down finally yet, but early May we'll open bids for that, and then same thing on the terminal apron, we're targeting that first part of June to open bids on that. So it'll be a busy year out here, construction wise with everything going on. And then just a heads up, probably at the next, either at the next meeting or the following meeting, I'll be bringing forward, meeting hunt contracts, we're doing all the inspections on those various projects, so. Any questions on that, or?
Any questions from the board for Mead and Hunt? None?
All right, thank you.
So just some additional, so the audit was sent to the city before April 1st. I did also provide it to the Cass County Auditor, and she acknowledged that's in accordance with the Century Code. They get a copy of the audit, and then it'll be transmitted online as soon as I guess Brian was done with this meeting today. There'll be a code or something I get where it's transmitted to on the federal site or.
Correct. Yep.
So that'll all be done here, and then once that's completed, Jamie from Balance Tax in the county will take the traditional reports that you see or the dashboard for 2022, and then she'll have the starting numbers for January of 2023. We should have financials at our next meeting, at least for January, possibly February, at our next board meeting. March passenger traffic, we know it was busy, but Delta still had a glitch in their reporting system, so we don't have the Delta numbers to finalize March, unless something came in before there. And then our PFM investments through the Bank of North Dakota, we had about $2.6 million mature, and they are reinvesting that. The next maturity amount for us will be around $2 million in June. So if we're looking for cash to cash flow any projects or things that we're doing, our next opportunity will be in June. But PFM will get that reinvested, laddered, and so forth for us. So I don't have anything else.
I have a question. We've been having really good passenger reports, like the numbers are up from last year. We've had so many cancellations. Is there a reporting of how many passenger boarding and deplanements we lost
Yeah,
due to
Darren's got
cancellations?
a pretty
Actually,
good,
I haven't had any cancellations.
not since December. I mean,
Yeah.
December and
I mean,
January, but
Right now, I think for March, it's only about 15.
Okay, but
yeah.
15,
Yeah.
150 people playing, or I mean, I know that just this last week, it was Tuesday night, Wednesday, on
Yeah,
Thursday
so
morning.
in the worst of the storm, we didn't lose too many. There was a glitch with United. Station manager had put out what the weather report was, talked to SkyWest Dispatch and United about canceling overnighters on a different night,
Wednesday.
on Wednesday night. And they ended up canceling the overnighters on Tuesday because of an error that United did with other bookings. So we lost our 3 inbounds, which resulted in 3 outbounds in the morning because of their error.
Okay,
They did not acknowledge it.
okay,
So they talked about canceling for the other night, but canceling the ones that could have operated perfectly. So even in the worst of the storm, the guys did a heck of a job. The long hours that they've put in, Andrew and his crew, Jordan is out there as snow boss. It's that was very frustrating for them to erroneously cancel flights. So outside of that, we'll see what Mother Nature brings us now, but it should just be raining from here going on.
hopefully it's smooth sailing from now on out.
Anything else for the benefit of the board?
I just, back to my initial question of having some competing bids for marketing. Like, how do we go about doing that?
You have to prepare an RFP and then try and find one, it just takes time. Unless you are aware of somebody, I don't know if anybody that has the depth and breadth of what Flint does for us. For crisis communications, social media, monitoring, they host our website, change the websites, public relations stuff. If they're out there, they have to come forth. But that's certainly up to the board. If you want to throw it out there and see what's available, that's fine, but
I guess my question would be, are we getting 3 FTEs worth of value from what they're doing? Or 2 or
more than
yeah, that was my question a couple of years ago. Are we getting 3 full-time employees of value from what they're doing?
So,
it's entirely up to you, whatever the board wants to do, we can put an RFP in the paper and see the response.
We can add it to the next agenda. Yes, John?
Would you wanna put on the agenda just, an action item for the next meeting to prepare an RFP for, the enumerated, services there that Sean was talking about. They could be split apart and they could be, as one and just, start that process.
Put it on for discussion. Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Meeting adjourned.